This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. This episode is brought to you by Blue Door Financial. Blue Door Financial will help you save money and reduce taxes to live a fuller financial life. To learn more, visit Blue Door Financial online at BLUDoorFinancial.com. That's BLUDoorFinancial.com. So you felt like you had to find a new purpose.
Yeah, I did. And it was simple. I'm a drug addict. I have alcoholism. I have substance use disorder. Not only do I want to learn about it, it seemed so exciting what I was so wrong about that maybe I could be of help to other people. It's that simple. That would have sounded cliche to me 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, whoa. Look, they can never keep me down, I'm going. And if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Joe Van Wie, host of the AllBetter Podcast. What's up, podcast? Episode 116 of the On the Stacks podcast here in the Blue Door studio. Joe Van Wie.
That's me.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the trip all the way from Scranton, too.
All the way.
I mean, like, that's like a, crossing that, that Lackawanna County, Luzerne County, that's like a thing. It's a challenge sometimes.
It can be, but believe it or not, I still use GPS to come to Wilkes-Barre, and
I do vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a thoughtless exercise. It's just typing, and then I'm told what to do by my car.
Told where to go.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's been a long time. You and I, we worked together on a board back in the past and several years ago, and it's nice to be able to reconnect with you. And it was kind of cool. And the reason that we reconnected is because we're both in the podcast world.
Yes.
So it's always fun and interesting for me to interact and have on another podcast person on the show here. So I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that too.
It is good to catch up. I enjoyed our time and the American Advertising Federation.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah.
It was fun. That's a fun board to serve on.
Yeah.
And the stuff that we were doing back then was just really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Wasn't corny. It was a fun group of people. But this came by chance. I saw your podcast, and I enjoy it, and it's beautifully done and presented. And I was trolling you a bit last week.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I'm glad we connected. Like literally, it was just from a Facebook comment.
Yeah, it was.
And now look, now you're here on the show. Wiggled your way in. I love it though. I'm glad you did.
I'm flattered to be here and be on the podcast. And I know you know what a podcast is and what it does to you. It's been pretty enjoyable figuring out how to do this and people enjoying it and being able to express yourself. It's a medium I never thought would feel like new or a different pace or a cadence to share stories or an information because I come from film. And the pace and cadence it's set for me to tell a story or express myself was groundbreaking because it was a pace I wasn't used to. I was more manic, run and gun, shoot. To sit one-on-one, I've never had more than one guest, and listen to someone, that was different, a different speed for me. And I wasn't really equipped in the beginning, but I wanted to be. Like, it took a while to listen deeply to people. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling, man. I mean, I'm 116 episodes in, but like, in the beginning, like you said, like it was, still finding my footing, and listen, I'm still learning like every day too.
Well, I'm learning a lot from you. I mean, just to say, like, what other thing have you been involved in besides printing? That you did 116 projects. They're episodes, but they're projects.
Yeah.
You have 116 now. It's a strange, fulfilling number. Like you're doing something that's just stacking up numbers like that.
Yes, I see what you did there. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It's crazy.
It's cool.
On the stack, yeah.
You
See? Like that? That was natural. I'm still a marketing man in my heart.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the Joe Van Wie story a little bit.
Yeah.
You're a Scranton native.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your history and where you came from.
I'm born and raised in Scranton. Van Wie's have been in Scranton for quite some time. They've been in the United States since 1640. Wasn't even North America.
Exact?
Yeah, North America.
Okay.
Yeah, must have been three maniacs that got kicked out of Europe to just travel 3 months on a boat to a forest, undefined forest. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Right.
So I think my background's, there's pirates in there. There's some madness.
It sounds like it.
Madness, just utter madness. But my mother was Irish. In a big Irish family, the Walshes in Scranton, and I don't know. I grew up like a Scranton kid. Went to Catholic school. I grew up. My neighborhood was poor kids, but my school was rich kids, and I had two sets of friends my whole life in that aspect. And
so, what was that like, having those two different?
It's like a split brain. It's. There's no sense of self that could go over both sides of the tracks. Do you know what I mean? So to look back at it, objectively and unjudgmental of yourself, because it feels weird when you first do that. But it's like I knew what I was good at on both sides of those tracks. Though it was being funny, maniac. I liked adventure. I didn't mind breaking rules.
You're a rule breaker.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, how far does the game go? Do the rules matter?
But what'd you find out?
There's adventure and pain and all of it. Yeah, there is. I've always kind of felt like, regardless of if you were friends with rich kids or poor kids, all of them seem to be in the circus on both sides that I became real friends with, and I feel like a carny kind of my whole life, not watching the circus. I wanted to be in it.
You really want to be participating.
Yeah, and that was Scranton life for me, and it, early on, I think the first relief to that kind of split or the insecurities that could rise from that. Also, looking back, if you wanted to put a concept or an idea or a condition on it, attention deficit disorder, maybe feeling some alienation from that, of those ideas that were on a rise in the 80s being labeled onto kids, but I didn't have medication for that. But looking back, I could see what was debilitating about it, like not being able to put my attention somewhere of substance. I think people would call it like executive function. Never really developed, even though I could socialize really well. I couldn't plan things really well, or pay attention for long periods, 6 hours in a school, just droning, looking in one direction. Made me feel very anxious and insecure. It wasn't active enough, or I couldn't focus attention.
So you knew you had this?
Not while I was experiencing it. Looking back, yeah, I did know that. I was a diagnosis given to me because I was always in trouble or acting up. I went to 4 grade schools. I was kicked out of Nativity, St. Pat's. I was at St. Paul's. I was a maniac.
So you were a real troublemaker.
Absolutely, man. That's my side of the line.
Yeah. Sorry, so you couldn't focus.
No, I couldn't. But I think in hindsight, seeing how the natural course of a personality developing, I think the sense of my ego never rose up before I felt like a sense of self, that I knew how to perform, and I think the first time there was a convergence where I felt like I arrived in some state of balance was when I drank. I had to be 12 or 13 years old.
When you had your first drink?
Yeah. And it wasn't something I was, desiring immediately. It wasn't something I never wanted to be part of. I grew up in the 80s. I like sports and the way drugs and alcohol were presented to me, not only in school or in my own house, because my dad had addiction issues. Alcohol was rampant in the males in my family. Was that it was something that was destructive. I didn't see cause. I didn't see it drinking a lot unless I was at parties. My grandparents looked pretty social, like in Greenridge. So it wasn't appealing. But then when I saw what it was doing to a group of like people I was hanging out with, it looked really enticing. It was the boogeyman wasn't there. I was like, I got to do this. And by 3 cheap beers, I think it was Meisterbrau, I felt like, holy God. It felt like a fist unclenched in my stomach and in my head. Like there was a background noise of what we were maybe calling ADD or anxiety that I couldn't articulate in a 12-year-old's mind. It seemed like it gave relief to a condition that was already there. Like that's kind of how I identify with addiction. Not everyone always does, but they're the people so alcohol seemed like a solution immediately to something that was just clenched in me. And that was it. The bells went off. Like this is something that is going to be really useful in my life.
So you saw it as like a positive.
I did personally and privately, and it seemed positive in the sense that it felt deviant to know that, because it was going to be something I had to hide from the adult world. I'm a young kid drinking, and I already know it feels like a positive, but everything cognitively or socially I've been taught about it is not. There's a conflict immediately. So
plus you're 12.
I'm 12, yeah, and you feel like a deviant anyways, drinking or whatever 12-year-olds are doing.
Troublemakers.
Yeah. Reading, stealing magazines out of grocery stores and smoking pot, same thing. There was this ability it gave me to feel at ease or relaxed. I didn't feel so self-conscious, and I didn't know I felt that way until I saw it relieved. Like it was just always there, but it just felt like, I guess this is what life is. We're all tense.
Yeah.
Maybe other people are relaxed, but I don't understand. It must be a different condition. I think even early on, I just attributed to socioeconomics. Like if you're wealthy, I guess you just feel better.
So when you were that young, you just didn't understand.
No. I there was things I understood that life was more complex than I could understand at that time. It was making me feel resentful or cheated. That things didn't add up. That didn't seem fair. The morality I was taught in school didn't seem like it was applied in school.
So when did this become a problem for you?
From the time I emerged into existence. I was confused. Someone I heard say once since fractions. I just felt like I was looking around the room. People are getting this?
What's that?
Yeah, well, I got numbers, but now they have like little cousins within that same number. I'm like, why does everyone look like this makes sense to their minds? I had so many questions I'd be terrified to ask. What is 1.5? Why can't we just deal with 2? 1 and 2?
Yeah. Too complicated.
Yeah, this is getting weird. It seems like a cheat. I guess that was it. I never felt like, I felt like if I was to be myself, maybe from, trauma and a little insecure detachment growing up, if I was to act like myself, I wouldn't be accepted or validated. And I don't know what gives cause to that, but it's a real problem that could happen for some, maybe subtly, like from cortisol, maybe in a stressful pregnancy. It could be in an attachment to a primary parent is broken and creates maybe before you're 8, like a personality could be developed that the world's not a safe place to be yourself. And then I think also being Catholic, that I'm in this body. It's, I'm dealing with a physical world, but all this is going to get settled in a magical world where my soul, my real condition, is just participating in what this first person game. It was too hard to wrap my head around. It created a sense of shame, and shame being the private life that's in someone's head is really being monitored by the boss, the celestial God. Like, that caused conflict in me as a kid, and I always felt like, even if I got away with trouble, I was, the boss is going to settle up with me when my ticket gets punched.
So because of Catholic school, you kind of had this like thought in the back of your head, like one day I'm doomed.
Yeah, a little mental North Korea there of Catholicism. It's like bad software in your head. It's like, I think that was a conflict for me. Because I can remember distinctly, my grandfather died, and it was probably 13 or 14. I really admired the man, and I'm thinking, oh man, he knows. He's up in the boardroom of whatever heavens where they could just review our sins.
Yeah, your transcripts.
Yeah, I'm like, now he really knows what a wacko I am. Like, what a disappointment. Even in his death, instead of mourning, I'm feeling a sense of shame, the self-centered kind of egocentric. And I think that's provided by that fantasy life of all this speculation that this is really happening. It's torment. It's bad. It's bad ideas. It's bad concepts. It's not testable or true. Now, I'm not disregarding the values that could come out of the principles I was taught in that, but the rest is really just so far out there to be teaching a kid.
Yeah. So did you go to Catholic school like all throughout high school?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, not. I got thrown out of them, and then finally that was it.
You went through a few middle schools, right?
St. Paul's, and then went to O'Hara. I was tossed from there, and then I got sent to Fort Lauderdale. My dad was going to straighten me out. He's a tough guy, and I went to school down there. I came back.
How old were you at this point?
15.
So you got sent to Florida.
Yeah.
At 15.
Yeah.
By yourself?
Fort Lickerdale. Yeah, to go live with my dad. That's like living with yourself. His conversation skills. So that's
Okay, sorry. So you go to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And what was the school down there?
Fort Lauderdale High, North Fort Lauderdale High. It was like a culture shock for me.
It was just you're just being sent to a new place.
Yeah, my dad was going to straighten me out. He lived down in Pompano, and he was sober at the time. And, that was my idea of what sobriety was. Like, my dad had all his, recovery friends got sober, and they all kind of had like this old gangster appeal. Like, they just don't drink now. Like, my dad was a pretty angry guy, regardless of not drinking. Yeah. It just looked like a social club you end up at. So that didn't work out. We were just constantly, I was unbridled. Like, I wasn't going to let this man break me. I was like, where were you, the first half? Now what, you're going to catch up with authority? Get bent. Yeah. So, I that's a condition too. I think it's called counter will. I've read about this, and it's people with addiction or ADD kind of exercise it a lot. And what they do is, like, if you're going to tell me something, like, don't pick this up and it will benefit me not to pick it up. My counter will says, exercise your liberty. Don't be told what to do. Do the opposite, regardless if it's good for me or not. And this is, in this paradox, you think you're exercising freedom. There is no freedom in that. You're reactive. And the reaction's already been dictated by what the person said. Like, so you could see in that dichotomy, like, there is no freedom in any of what was going on in my head or how I would respond to the world. So drinking and smoking pot at all this time was the only time I felt released from this weird neurotic struggle that was going on in my head.
So like, would you say at this point, like, you had an addiction?
Yeah, I would, because at 15 I was in a treatment center.
That young?
Yeah, before I went to my dad's, there was a little gap there, but my family, they're close. They don't ignore problems. Maybe, at some degree in the 40s and 50s, we all did, the Irish, But they weren't then. And they saw there was a problem, disciplinary and school and drinking and smoking pot, which was irregular, the amounts I was doing at that time, especially for my family's taste. They stepped in and said, we'll put them in a treatment center. There was an adolescent one in Chick-Shinny then, Clearbrook owned. And I don't know, I felt kind of, I knew I was part of that tribe, like sitting with the other kids, like, yeah, this is me. But I didn't see like the urgency or agency I needed to take to do anything about this. Like, I also was listening to the adults who would come in there. I'm like, well, they got another 10 years. This dude was at Woodstock. Like, what? Well, I'm going to be cheated out of these adventures?
So you felt like you were going to miss out.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, he's standing here telling that story. If it gets worse, I got to find a way to get back into this life and cool it. But I couldn't make the connection of why I needed drugs or alcohol to stay in my life. I felt cheated that they'd be taken. I could only see the punitive measure. I wasn't able at 16 to articulate the need for them and why panic would set in to the fact that I would now face a life with a sober mind. This sounds tormentive, nightmarish, and punitive, really punitive.
So how did you get out of that state? How did you figure that out?
Well, I got sent to another, like a reformatory military academy after that. I was desperate. I was experiencing things my friends weren't. And I met a gentleman in a 12-step program that was just, I've been going to these meetings on and off. I knew the pain I was causing my mother and my family and stress. I felt alienated from my siblings. It just seemed like, well, how long is this going to take? When are you going to be normal? And this guy I met, that's what that painting is. I didn't know it at the time, but he was a world-renowned architect. He designed Fordham Law School, Tisch School of the Arts, he worked on the Guggenheim, all these ski chalets all throughout Colorado and Aspen. He's living in Scranton.
Wow.
And he's like in his 60s, big white beard, really avant-garde paintings. That was from, just a side note, I had a end of the world party for the Mayan calendar ending, and that's what he brought to the party. And
that was his contribution.
That's what he would look like after the party. That when the world just gets all transfigured.
Yeah, all twisted up.
He's a cool dude. I met him. His name was Bruce Bicknell, and he told me my problem isn't drugs and alcohol, and I was just like, what the hell kind of music are you singing? So that captured my mind. He said, the problem is you find life intolerable. You could say drugs and alcohol are the problem, but they didn't cause the problem. And I think that's where people make a big mistake. Like the drugs in themselves. Have you ever taken painkillers, like with your surgery?
Yeah.
Did you leave all strung out?
No.
I don't think so. Why not? Well, because you have, you have connection. You have connection to your family. Like I got to know you. I don't think addicts, they feel disconnected. And it could be, the mind causes addiction, not the drug in itself. And there's great studies that go at length to do this, especially like Vietnam being the first monumental one. Like, up to 15% of soldiers in Vietnam were using heroin. But when they came back, they're thinking, well, they're going to have this plague. The tens of thousands of, heroin addicts are now going to be vets in the street with trauma. And they watched these guys over the years. Only 10% of that number of like 30,000 people remained as addicts.
Wow, that's interesting.
And it was because they were addicts. It's a condition of the mind. It's not.
It was just the environment that they were in.
Yeah, it wasn't the interaction with the drug. Now, that's addiction the way I relate to it. I'm not saying it could be the case, but this is what I know my problem is. I would have been the addict because the heroin would have met a need that I was waiting for. The connection and ritual of what that produces in my mind, or the opioid reward system, I can't produce by myself. There's a shortcut there. Like, I don't think people pay attention to the value of what's really happening. You're having a human experience when you're getting high. It's an illusion. It's going to kill you. It could cause distress, all kinds of other problems. But it's not just indulgence.
So it was filling a void.
Yeah.
What was your void?
I didn't feel connected to people. This sense of insecurity. This private, like I was saying, in my mind, this voice was so loud in my head. It could be called anxiety prior to that. ADD. It can linger into depression, this total self-centered voice of just having this life. I didn't feel connected to people unless I was drunk. Now, when I was drunk, I felt connection with people, and it could be surface or meaningful with friends. But I never felt like myself sober, and it felt really hard to get there. And then when I was sober, it felt like order and control. Like I needed to focus on that, and that would leave me in the same condition, anxious. Like I couldn't see a way out of this feedback loop.
So you got sober, but then when you were sober, you felt all that anxiety again, and felt like you had to go back.
Yeah, and I just thought it's the anxiety of responsibility. Like I was missing. There's another option, and I couldn't see it. At first, I thought I did.
So when did you get sober?
Well, I got sober from a period of 17 to 21. I drank again under, I was in distress. I had a broken heart, breakup. I was living in New York by my own means, working, going to school, was working at Xerox. And I just got overwhelmed with life and a broken heart. I started drinking again. And it wasn't pretty. It's just totally dysfunctional. I can't keep a job. I just disappear from off the grid. I don't want to go home. I want to stay out.
Yeah.
So that collapsed. I moved back here. I was working at Russell's restaurant. And it was just felt like defeat. I would work, then I would drink before I knew what the light was up. Then I'm like, oh, I got to go into work at 4. I'm not making a plan to move back, go to school. Time just kept, like, I would blink and then this 3 months went by. And then one night I wrecked a vehicle, was drunk, I was using a lot of cocaine, and just ended up in the hospital. I went to treatment for about 6 months. My family, I saw how distressing, like I don't know how to become an adult. Like, this is terrifying. It was humiliating. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, sometimes I felt like I was just blaming addiction. There's something just wrong with me. Because you always hear addiction talked about, like, personified. I'm an alcoholic, or the disease is waiting for me as this entity that's outside of me, or has attacked me. I don't, like, is there a me outside of the addiction? It's weird. Language does that. So language being used that way made me feel stigma in that sense that, is there really a cognitive disorder happening here? What's actually happening? Do I just like drinking and using drugs? Like, it's weird. It's weird. It starts to torment an addict himself. Because, like, where is the will being exercised? Do I decide to get sober? Like, at when? There is no free will being exercised there. You have to tell yourself a story that there is to not go into total panic, that you're not in control of anything. You're really not. And that's a strange idea. I don't think most people could relate to or don't believe. I don't have to convince other people to believe that. I just know it's true. Because I had loving mother and sisters. I just couldn't feel connected to them. I couldn't feel like the shortcut was too powerful, what it did for me, just being drunk and being out. So 24, I got sober, and that gentleman I was talking to you about helped me, get a comprehension of what 12-step life can look like. I got away from the consequences of an addiction. And this ambition and will kind of woke up in me that carried me for another 14 years. And I was committed to helping other people. But I guess if you wanted to say esoteric, I fell back asleep. Like, my mind, I I went in a direction that, like, I just felt lost. I got lost in my own life.
In those 14 years?
Yeah, at the tail end of it.
Yeah. What did you do for those 14 years?
I just entertained whatever ideas I could come up with. Can I make a movie? Well, yeah, okay. Make a movie. Can I make another one? Could I start a business? I seem to be unemployable. Yeah. Let me see if I can be an entrepreneur, because I don't like listening to other people telling me what to do.
All right, so you made some movies. You started a business. Tell me a little bit about it.
I was making shorts at the time and doing stand-up and improv, and I got a budget together for a film and some investors. Went and made a movie, trying to sell it for a year, and under all the kind of the press that we got from that and the PR, how can I translate this into something that's of opportunity? I started an ad agency. I fell backwards into politics. I always had a mind for politics, but I never felt committed to anybody to be really to take cause with someone. It's always so slimy. I like to just critique from the bench. Yeah, but I got involved, and it's lucrative because it's recession-proof. Someone. That's how democracies run. Someone has to be in charge of, or pretend they're in charge of the oligarchs of a democracy. And instead of killing each other, you can elect someone different every 2 years. I hope we don't lose that. But I enjoyed it. I got good at it, but it's hard. It's hard to be creative and then objectively do something like that. And I got lost in it. And I kind of felt like an imposter in my own life. My ideals didn't match up with a lot of people sometimes, and I couldn't afford to have ideals. I was starting to have employees. Felt like this is what all adults deal with to some degree. Yeah, of course. But it made me cynical in my own life. I didn't feel connected so much to AA as much anymore. My sponsor, that gentleman I was talking about, was getting old, losing his memory. He was kind of my anchor in there. My ego, like I was permitting it to be awake for longer periods and indulge in impulse and just reckless stuff. This adolescent kind of woke back up in my life. And my life, I don't know if you remember, there wasn't many people in my life that could challenge me. I felt like I was so... It wasn't like someone was saying, don't do that, don't cross that line. And the line was my own morality. There was a sense of it in there, and I was a hypocrite. I don't know, maybe some people could get away. It was starting to kill me. Kill the idea of my soul when I was alone. Not making decisions anymore, just avoiding all conflict, trying to increase pleasure. This before I drank. It just caused an enormous anxiety in me. And I didn't feel any sense of a connection with spirituality of that degree. I was an atheist. I'm my mind's getting more materialistic in the sense that I feel there's a life in me that's an idealist. There always has been. But now it's being snuffed out because I'm running a business, and I don't know how to run a business like an idealist. And I'm not a good businessman. I'm a fun one, but you could see that. I was a maniac.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that conflict, it just became overwhelming. And my retreat, I started smoking pot, to get anxiety. I have no judgment on pot. I think pot helps a lot of people. I really do. But what happens with me is it just wakes up. It's a shortcut. Pot didn't change my life. It did commit to relief for me at first, to anxiety. I felt a little airy, like my ideal, like I could listen to music now, and ideals were waking back up, but I wasn't changing anything in my life. It doesn't cause discipline of the changes I would need to feel some kind of balance in my head. So I tried the same experiment with drinking again after 14 years of not drinking. It was like I never stopped. In 2 days, I could drink a bottle of Jameson. And I was like in a week, I was already itchy for cocaine. I'm like, oh, I'm so drunk. Well, I remember I used to, I know how to combat this.
So you guys take a little cocaine?
Yeah, well, put the brakes on this Jameson for a bit so I could drink like a gentleman, Bill. I don't want to make a fool out of myself.
Yeah, you can't be sloppy.
I can't look like a fool at the Scranton Club. I got to tighten up in here.
Yeah. So you start using again.
Yeah, I did. And you know what happened? I felt relief. I knew this could be a problem, but everything I knew about addiction, the arrogance I had of being involved in AA or in treatment centers, so many throughout my life, I thought I knew what alcoholism was. And some explain, but that wasn't fully true. I could not apply that objectively to my own condition. And I had a lot of misunderstandings after all that time about what addiction was. Because here I am drinking again, and I think alcohol's the problem. If it gets bad, I'll stop drinking. That my mind isn't the problem. And it sounds simple, but for a person like me, it's profound. Cocaine's the problem to drinking, or this or that. And it skirts the real responsibility that I don't know how to accept, that I could have power, or I could at least have some power or agency in my life. And that alcohol and drugs are not the problem. They're like this failed solution to the way I felt.
So you still didn't know, and you were still trying to figure this out.
Yeah, and know to the degree how progressive addiction is for people. What happens in the brain, how short that time period, the gap closes versus, I didn't look at myself as fall down drunk, but, I started drinking again at 39 and I became a fall down drunk. Like I could not stop drinking. I'd go to rehab for 30 days and I'd get out. I could get one upsetting email and the thought was like, hey, I know you got to quit drinking, but do you really have to do it today? Like this is a rough day. The gaps of those thoughts cognitively happening, once you get into that debate, you're cooked. You're gone. I'm at a bar by 2. Or now I need cocaine all the time. Now out of desperation, I know there was breakthroughs. People are using psilocybin, LSD. I'm taking high-dose trips by myself. Can I reset what's going on? I feel really tormented. And when I'm sober, I'm feeling extremely depressed, nihilistic. I'm not even going into work. I feel like an alien in my own life. I feel trapped by it.
So you had your own company.
Yeah.
You had employees.
I did. They usually stop showing up if you're not there for 30 days.
I would think so.
I'm not going to make it in today. I got a meeting out in Buffalo.
Yeah.
It's like
So you were basically doing all kinds of drugs at this point.
Yeah, I was, and I thought it was worth the risk. I felt life was so stale, and my friends were very concerned. Some of them did not know how to talk to me. Some have misguided feelings like, oh, I feel bad because maybe I drank with them, and this is all totally misdirectional. It's nobody's fault or any. And I talk to them as if I have a saddle on it. This is what I want. I want to be this dysfunctional. Like this is really nice. I didn't open mail for I was just throwing it in my fireplace. So you could see what's going on. I'm giving up.
Yeah.
And what woke me up was my sister got sick. And she had a headache. And she had a brain tumor, and it became inoperable, center mass of her brain. And I was just like, I've been drunk for 2-3 years, like just totally on a decline from addiction, thinking it's everything else. Like, it's my business. If I could fix my business, I didn't want it, man. But I don't know how to talk that way. I don't know how to be an adult like in my own head, like a child. Addiction wakes up this child that's been traumatized in your mind. It's crazy. So that event woke me up to at least, wow, this there's other things happening. This is my sister, and she's always watched my back. So I went to a detox. I told my family I had a business trip, and I detoxed. And when I came back, I was just terrified. I could get a call, and if I drank, I'm the type of guy who drinks for 3 days straight. I disappear. I can't answer my phone. I'm on a bender. I'm waking up with pirates, like with strangers, thinking, like I could come out of a blackout thinking, oh my God, where have I been? Is this suit coat's ripped. And
what day is it?
Yeah, I remember having a Bloody Mary at lunch, and now it's like I drink like a cartoon, man.
And it's like 3 days later.
Not everyone that has addiction drinks that way. I'm a hyperbolic. I've watched too many cartoons. So this whole thing's just, I don't know. It traumatized the idea that if I got a call and I was drunk and my sister's getting treatments in Philly, what am I gonna, am I gonna be that guy? So I took a lot of Xanax and I smoked a lot of pot. I'm like, just don't drink. That was what I was calling recovery. And my body's shot. I've been on like benders on and off, doing way too much cocaine for a 40-year-old, and I didn't care. I got sick and ended up, while my mother was dealing with my sister, I ended up going into a coma from a double pneumonia, from just run down my whole body, and while my sister's in Philly. And I woke up from that coma after like 19 days. In the room was all guys from 12-step program. I was like, what am I doing? Do I want to die? I wasn't sure, but now I'm really dying. What did you do? What are you doing? I felt nihilistic. Like nihilism's like this kind of shortcut for someone like that's, for me, I think myself of intellectual. But I'm trapped in nihilism. It's just inward. It's just this piercing inwardness of what's happening to me. So it's this almost neurotic self-centeredness. And it's embarrassing to admit to, because it's like there's a whole lens of life I didn't see. Like just the experience in itself, how unlikely it is to be a Joe Van Wie or Bill. Like I was missing a whole aspect that my atheism became so toxic, it shut me off to stuff I didn't really explore. Now I'm losing a sister. I can't leave this hospital bed. I'm just filled with anxiety that I blew a life. Like this is, and I think a lot, coupled with some high dose trips that were terrifying, but in a good way in some sense. I wanted another chance, man. I was like, I blew it. I want agency over my life, or this idea that I can have, and it's not coming from me. It's coming from the people I've been ignoring. My friends at 12-step programs, my family. Not chasing kind of shallow things that I was doing to just have an identity. That's over, man. I had, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in life? Where do you want to connect? I knew I had 20 years of experience with addiction, in and out of it, not understanding it. And a couple months later, I got sober. I didn't get sober right away. I drank after my sister passed away that April. I came home. My finances were a mess. There was people staying at my house. I have a big house for weeks. A lot of community, a lot of support. And they all left. I came back to the house. I went to the bathroom and I flushed the toilet. I was taking a leak, and the water didn't come back up. It was my water bill. And my finances are a mess. From just addiction, I'm like, oh my God, my water shut off. So what do? I don't call a water company. I drove down to the liquor store. I was like, well, let me get settled in here and figure out what the exit plan. I'll get back on the saddle here. I need to, just untie this knot in my head. And, I wish the story was it went off the rails then. It was up and down. And in the midst of that, I fell in love. And I wanted to be alive. And I'm like, when are you going to get sober? It's kind of this dialogue. And it wasn't a day I expected. It was my friend Larry Moran and my friend Eric stopped at the house. I was letting a guy get thrown out of a halfway house. I'm drinking, snorting ketamine and Molly daily, microdosing it to It's what I have to do to feel stable. Stay in my attic. And he's a great guy. They came over. He was concerned. He's like, Joe's out of his mind, and he's drunk, and he's not. I'm not confronting him, but I'm supposed to be here staying sober. He's allowing me to stay, but nobody knows this. Is anyone going to confront him or do something? Like, he's going to die. Like, I wasn't doing well. I was just in a coma. I'm still drinking. And they came over and confronted me. I don't know what it was about that day. I heard myself talking to them, and I felt like I'm an adult sitting in this house. My life's a mess. I'm not sure the way out. I'm in love with a woman. I really am. And I don't know how to stop addiction. I can't stop it. Do I just maintain it? Do I go through life as an addict and not just see how many people I don't hurt? I don't know. I don't think I'm capable of getting sober again. And the people I know that are sober have some access to spirituality. It's fair for me to say I thought they were deluding themselves in something, and that trick works, but it won't work again. It's a parlor trick. I'm not. So when Larry and my friend came over, and I heard myself explaining my justifications to them, and them sitting there, and I'm thinking, they're here. My other friend's married. He has kids. He has kids. They don't want to be on my couch telling a 40-year-old why kid, put your life back together. And I was like, I saw the burden I was causing them, and they were still there to help me. I was like, what are you doing? Wake up. So I wouldn't say it's God, but I knew my friends I wasn't them anymore. I wasn't on the other side of that couch. I wasn't there for many people. I was broken. Was I going to stay broken? Like, am I going to give up? And I don't know, that from that point it changed. I started going in another direction. Slowly. I talk too much, Bill. I'm glad I'm on a podcast talking too much.
Yeah. All right. So your friends came over, and you finally just had this realization. And what did you do next?
We were trying to decide if I should go to treatment. I probably should have, but I said I have to do a couple ads or I'm going to go broke. I mean, I don't want to lose my house. I don't want to, I'm still a mess. I called who's now my wife, then, and I told her, when I'm not out there visiting you, she was in San Francisco then, I'm drinking. And she was heartbroken, cause she knew I was trying to be sober. I told her I stopped drinking. I wanted to. And I remember visiting her, and I got back, and I was in an airport, and there was a layover in Atlanta. And Atlanta's a weird place to get drunk. And I was like, well, I hate flying. I'm going to go in and have a drink. And I did. And I got on the flight back home, but I didn't call anyone back for 2 days. I left from Avoca. Who the hell knows where I was? I was out for 2 days. Aha! Whoops. And the brutal hangovers I get for 3 days on that couch. I wondering if I should go up the ER. Am I taking a heart attack? Is that heartburn? Sweating. I can't breathe. I can't eat. Oh my God, I should go to treatment. A couple hours go by. Well, maybe just watch a movie. Well, if you feel all right tomorrow, maybe try a meeting. Maybe you should, and then that would just all dissipate. And the next, okay, I'm fine. I just don't drink this week. And then hours later, I'm drinking. I was like I was living in a nightmare. Hypnosis. I couldn't believe it. And then problems weren't going away. They're piling up. So that was still there, the problems. Like, how am I going to solve these? Like, what am I going to do? And the guy that was helping me, gave me a shortcut. Those problems may or may not be solved. But who's Joe going to be before he dies? Are you going to be the guy you should be? And that's where the work kind of started for me. I don't know if that could for everyone that's an addiction. I think there's a broader way for a lot of, but I had to confront it that way. Like, there wasn't a shortcut. I had to decide who was I going to be if I couldn't solve these problems? What kind of integrity did I want to piece back together? Where's the meaning? Where's the purpose in my life? And I went through the steps with them again, 12-step life. I got therapy, which was very helpful to understand, a broader definition of traumas, PTSD, to admit how sensitive of kind of a guy I am. And I wanted to bury that, pretending I was a businessman. And I felt like it took some anxiety was lessening, but I was getting a lot of anxiety attacks. I don't know. I was a mess. The idea I had of the world was so nihilistic and limited lens. All I could see is suffering. Life kind of is just cruel. This like weird game of cruelty. I found meditation was a relief to that, but not immediately. And it was hard for me to do it because I'm anxious. I want to do an action to get rid of something. So my wife I started doing yoga with her, using apps, Sam Harris's app, I'm Waking Up. That helped me tremendously. See this space in between what I think's happening to me and what's just happening. Like there's like this weird space in between, and then I could be all right with it or not. But it does, like maybe I can't change it, but I could be all right with it. It was starting to explore those ideas, and that's where I found addiction was this inability of me to be present in my life. So it's a conscious, like, for me, like if I take all the shortcuts, I don't see the genetic predispositions, like proteins are waking up telling me to be an alcoholic. That just isn't a full truth at all. Nurture is what I see around me, how emotionally connected people become, what we do hide. Of course, alcoholics might have alcoholic children. But what is it? Is it genetics? Like what? That isn't a flushed out answer. It's the social dynamics of how people deal with trauma, resolution, purpose, meaning, and I saw that had to be put back together on my end, and it wasn't anyone else's fault. Like there's no one to blame.
So you felt like you had to find a new purpose.
Yeah, I did, and it was simple. I'm a drug addict. I have alcoholism. I have substance use disorder. Not only do I want to learn about it, it seems so exciting what I was so wrong about that maybe I could be of help to other people. It's that simple. That would have sounded cliche to me 10 years ago. Oh, you're going to work at a rehab like my friends. I don't see any better, like what I should do with time than talk to people that are trapped in this hypnosis of addiction and think it's something else happening to them. And it's not. It's just addiction. And be able to talk to them. So yeah, I wanted to do that. And I was lucky because I had friends, Larry Moran and Frank Tunis in Scranton. They're two attorneys. One has a lot of experience with construction and projects. We're throwing around this idea. Larry experienced going to a halfway house that was profound for him. And Larry's one of my best friends, and we all kept this discussion going, and it manifested into the idea of Fellowship House in Scranton. Just got some grants, and construction starts this month. Be open this fall for 20 guys as a partial hospitalization program. And what that is, transitional living. And it's a chance after treatment or detox to get another 90 days in a half clinical setting, half residential, half freedom. Let's get you back into school. And what's so unique about this is that it's in Scranton, downtown Scranton. We're not in the woods hiding.
Far away.
All of them are hiding, but
but they're off the beaten path.
Yeah, to live in a really dignified, cool old mansion in the middle of Greenwich, have access to 5 universities, employment, a total clinical access to trauma therapy, executive functioning. Now that, like, if this is an issue, especially in academics in 20s, a place where we all have these kind of conditions, and nothing's wrong with us. We just got to do it a different way. And there's no stigma with that. When approaching academics, employment, putting a resume back together, we can't play with the squares, alcoholics and drug addicts. It's not our world. Every time I try to fit into that, it made me feel like I was dying.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to win this game.
So you're going to run this place?
Yeah. Our clinical director is going to be Dick Conaboy. And Larry is executive director, and I'm going to be the marketing of it. And then eventually at the transition to be, I'd be the clinical director years from now. I've had a lot of support from the community and friends, and my present employer is Avenues Recovery Community. They're in 8 states. And they gave me a home during the pandemic. I was not working. All my ads were canceled that were, going to shoot, but I wasn't sure if I was going to continue doing this. I'd go on set and I'd be just filled with anxiety, even though I didn't want to drink. I forgot how to work. I don't know how to explain. I felt like this is not what I should be doing. I didn't want to be involved in politics. I saw how polarizing it was becoming. It wasn't that I wanted to avoid the fray. I didn't want to be on a side screaming at the wrong issue. It sounded stupid to me. I wanted to enlarge my empathy. More importantly, my sympathy. The difference being sympathy is a call to action. Not only can I feel your pain, I have a plan for you or me, or I could help. Empathy, I could get lost in. It could just make me feel bad because or someone else's joy. But I was thinking, this is where I need to be. Working at Avenues for a year during that pandemic, listening to people and the pain that it caused their family and the suffering. It was the first time I realized how sick I became and where my pain was coming from. Forget drug use or drinking or the parties. Why I needed to stay out. What I was avoiding, how hurt I really was inside. To listen to other people start to talk about it, I saw me. There was like a spiritual axiom that I guess I never caught on to. I was like, there I am. It was like I was saying it. And I haven't listened to anyone in 10 years. I had employees and projects, and I was young, and I wanted to increase pleasure, avoid pain at all costs. This is what Americans should be doing. And I forgot what real connection is with empathy, is that I don't have to be afraid to be upset if someone else is upset. And I'm like, where have I been? I felt like I was asleep. And that's solidified. So I'm forever grateful to that. And they knew my marketing background, what a propaganda artist I was. But they allowed me to lecture my experience at their facilities and then become part of the marketing team that was transitioning into more educational services for families, defining substance use disorder and how complex it can be socially, economically, neurologically, the fractional of the genetics and what this really is in families. To be active in programs that are continual support for the alumni services that encourage peer-to-peer connection. So there's no power displacement. We're all helping each other, watching each other's back. So they gave me a home, and they've been supportive of all my ideas and gave me a place to be of use, really. And it's been fun. Around that whole genesis of what we were talking about was I had to express myself, and it came in the form of a podcast. And I'm still feeling my way. Sometimes it feels through the dark, but I really, really got to enjoy it the same way I was describing Avenues. We were talking about this off mic, experiencing listening to someone. I didn't have that when I was younger. It was too much noise in me, to really dig in and listen to what's going on, because it's like might have scared me, because if I listened or cared about someone, it could affect what my plan was or what I was thinking. I had a plan. I got to stick to it. If someone needs something from me, I'd be like, oh my God, I can untether. But the podcast let me pace that. And there was something about listening to someone, because when you're gone. They do too. It's just you, 2 mics. And I'm like, well, I'm present again. It felt good.
So tell me about the podcast.
I have to think the executive producer of my podcast is my wife. Now, see, that's where all permission comes. So, the attic was going to be her yoga room. Like, we painted it all white, and and then it slowly became
a podcast studio.
Oh, yeah. She got another room, and she does the yoga. So, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, and I can't just tell you how beneficial they were. Just that medium. So I'm listening to Sam Harris, Freakonomics Radio. I never thought economic presentations would be so interesting, because they're so human and thoughtful. So I'm like a fan now, like driving to work, driving to avenues, and I'm listening to other people like Lex Friedman. I've listened to you. I'm like, this is like a great way to express yourself, and it doesn't seem like it's under a microscope. It's a place to explore and play and learn at a way that I enjoy learning, long format. That's not quick sound bites. And the discussions I was hearing in politics, science, local, the way you do deep dives into people that are really interesting, that, the paper can't do that. An NEP clip can't do that. And that you could deep dive and find out who someone is. This is like, how did radio become interesting again? Like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. We're doing a deep dive into Joe Van Wie.
Yeah. So I thought maybe this is a way I could express myself. Maybe I should do a podcast. And I didn't want to, whatever the genesis of your idea is, it's exciting. So you start reading. I'm watching YouTubes. Now, I'm a film guy, and I'm like, I knew nothing about like all the details of a podcast. I'm like, no, YouTubes, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
it's just awesome. It's like it's cultish. Like,
yeah.
And so I wrote a little treatment, and my cousin Timmy Kalpin, he was a screenwriter, South Park, and he's helping me kind of form the idea. He has to move, so I got a mics, got a headphone. I'm like, let's just start doing pilots. I shot the first couple episodes. It didn't come out well at all, man. It looked like public access. Like, I was unrecognizable. I just spent 2 years in a Zen state of feeling better, getting a sense of self again that isn't deranged. And I watched those videos. I'm like, who the hell is that? Well, hello, good evening. I was like, Oh, it was weird. And I just had friends over at the house. I'm like just chatting with them. So that wasn't it. And my friend suggested, John Edwards, to do it just sound first. Like, just go to what you're doing. Just talk to somebody. And I did. And, it took a couple, episodes. I go back and forth. But it took a couple episodes, and I wanted to design it to have 3 lanes. A psychiatric kind of clinical lane, where I'm interviewing professionals I think are the most meaningful, first in this local footprint, in defining addiction, co-occurring problems, underlying addictions, and get professional, measurable definitions. Kind of this first season. What are we talking about when you say this word? What is the concept? Where does it start and end? Personal stories, which I enjoy. That gives you a real taste of what is this? What's going on in someone's words? And recovery in all forms. Be it traditional 12 steps. Some people have different forms of recovery. I want to hear them all. And the third lane was what I would call agents of change, but, government, politics, policy. And, I brought that Nixon. That's kind of a joke. But
Yeah.
But the ideas in policy always, can materialize addiction. The drug's the problem. Let's declare war on them, on the drugs. You're declaring war on people that are suffering from addiction, a serious disorder that will kill you. So you see a lot of changes, even since Nixon, but not fully. Not the full structure is so embedded to make drugs the problem. They're not. This skirts the issue of any of us being responsible. Culture is the problem. Civilization is the problem. Religion could be a problem in this. It's the condition of humanity that's the problem, but nobody wants that responsibility over it. It's a drug. It's a product. This is crazy. That's just insane. So I got a lot of interesting people locally, and we're really, I don't know, spoiled with how many wonderful people are in Luzerne and Lackawanna County. From, we have the drug court that's pretty progressive there. Our DA is here, and just kind, articulate people that want more changes, and more dignified changes, and immediate changes in harm reduction to stop people just from dying, regardless of what your idea of recovery is. Dead people can't get sober, and it's undignified to not give people life-saving medicine to stop ODs or have maintenance from fentanyl. It's just crazy. But yeah, I was blown away. The people in recovery that still didn't understand that definition. It was like total abstinence. This is the salute. I don't know. There's a bridge to there. That's not. It's crazy stuff. So, I wanted the podcast to be in that discussion.
Well, I think you're doing a lot, man. And congrats. I mean, you're 25 episodes in, so that's exciting. And you snuck your way in here. Yeah, it's awesome.
The window was open.
Yeah, he crawled right through.
What's going on?
I don't know how this guy got here today.
I walked.
No, man, it's really cool. I'm grateful that you reached out to me.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad. I'm flattered to be here.
Yeah. It was really. Honestly, I really didn't know about your past experiences for the last lifetime. Honestly,
Bill, it was a life of hiding, man. I could hide things, really dress it up nice.
Yeah, but no, I applaud you for coming on the show and talking about your experiences.
Yeah.
And, I think you're doing some great things, and I wish you the best with the new program. So,
yeah.
So
thank you.
How can our listeners, two things: listen to your show, find your show, number one, and then also your new program that you guys are gonna be opening up in the fall. How can somebody take advantage?
Well, the program's AllBetter.fm. You can reach out to me there or enjoy the show. And if anyone was looking for the services or the help we were speaking about, you could email me at joe.vanwie@avenuesrecovery.com.
Cool. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any message or anything you want to leave with our listeners, viewers?
Well, there's nothing wrong being a carny in life, I'd rather be a carny than watching the circus.
Yeah. You make for a great carny, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've always felt like a...
You look like a carny. You came dressed like a carny. You brought some carny props.
The only problem with not being a carny is wishing you weren't. You gotta take the role.
Gotta take ownership of it.
Just breathe into it. Yeah. Fill the role.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot you had that guitar. It's over in the corner because I forgot it's over there. What's the story with the guitar?
That's a 1964 Epiphone Casino. It's the Beatles guitar, not their guitar.
I don't know much about guitars, so school me here before we end.
Epiphone's War Casino hollowback guitars. Gibson took over. So this is a OG. I got this guitar because I'm not a musician, but all of my friends were. I would never dare call myself a musician. But I got that, and I would lend it to Roy Williams. I don't know if you know Roy.
I don't know him personally, but
he plays for Roger Waters down at his yard parties. And Pat Finity. Pat Finity, that's his favorite guitar in the world. So I thought I could play that to plug him. We'll be plugging Pat, but he has an Instagram show. And during the pandemic, I would tune into that every week on Instagram, the Pat Finity Show. it made life worthwhile again. He's playing live concerts on the roof. Philadelphia Inquirer shows up. The show explodes. He has Dave Grohl on.
It's like a serious thing.
Yeah. So then Rolling Stone does a write-up on him.
Wow.
And then, his YouTube channel blew up. It just gave, in the sense of that dark times, that rough summer, everything was uncertain. Institutions were like really crumbling, regardless of what you believe in. It was cynical. And then I would be scrolling through these feeds in the middle of just madness. There's Pat jamming on a roof. I was like, you know what, man? I want to lighten up my attitude. I want to approach this with a little more cavalier and be myself in the middle of a crisis. It's friends like that. When you're around people, you realize, okay, it doesn't all crumble. This just, dust yourself off and carry on.
Yeah, and you're a new dad.
Yeah, I am. Persia.
Yeah,
Persia Van Wie.
Congratulations.
Yeah, she's got most of my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is she?
18 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, she's starting to say more. My dog Brando, still alive.
Yeah.
He's gonna be 16 this year. She calls him Bambo. Bambo. So if I ever have another dog, it's gonna be named Bambo.
Bambo. Yeah. Make it easy.
Yeah.
Easy transition.
That's her first objective in the morning. I could go in her room. She wakes up. She goes, Bambo. I'm like, all right, let's go down and see him.
There we go. Perfect. Well, Joe, man, I appreciate you coming on, and
thanks, man.
Yeah, and I wish you the best with everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have to
thanks for having me on to talk about these things. We'll be open in the fall.
Absolutely, and maybe we'll have you back on in the future. But as fellow podcasters, I'm sure that you and I will stay in touch.
Yeah,
pretty
I'll
frequently.
have you on. You'll have to just come in. You have to drink. We'll measure your drinks.
There we go. We could do that.
We'll do an experiment.
That sounds good. All right, Joe Van Wie on the Stacks Podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag #OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on The Stacks.